Hey there and welcome back. In today's video, I'm going to show you how you can deploy your payload project to Coolify. Now, what is Coolify? It basically is an open source project that brings the developer experience that you usually get with platforms like Vercel or Railway to your own server. So you get this kind of project dashboard where you can manage multiple projects on one server. You can add notifications to be notified via email or even Telegram if a deployment fails, for example. You can also add webhooks. You can automatically deploy from your GitHub repository. So you can basically, just like in Vercel, you can link your project and it will automatically deploy if you have a new commit. It can also deploy certain templates. The list is growing here, but it is very handy, for example, if you want to deploy a MongoDB database or a MySQL database. And it also gives you automatic preview domains for, I call it preview domains, for your projects. So the things that you're used to, like your project name .vercel.app, it can automatically generate those as well for specific environments as well. So you can also have a production environment. You can have a preview environment for every branch if you like. Now, to go into more details about why you should consider hosting on Coolify, first of all, it's open source. You basically buy your own VPS, your own server, and therefore you own your own data, which is also super great and super important for GDPR compliance. For example, here in Germany, it's really hard to make deployments on Vercel be compliant with the regulations here. It can be way cheaper than platforms like Vercel or Railway, especially if you have higher workloads, because all that Vercel and Railway do is they resell you server resources at a way higher price for the developer experience that you get. So let's say if you have a team of 5 people that need access to the platform, that will be, if Vercel or Railway, that will just be $100 a month just for those people to access the platform without anything else, the same capacity. And one thing that I also noticed is that it has way better role-based access control than any of those other platforms I've tried. Because let's say in Vercel, you can't even specify that one member has just access to one specific project. You can only do that on the enterprise plan. So there are sort of 2 ways how you can deploy Coolify. There's one simple way that I'm going to show you today, and there's one advanced way. Now, the simple way is to have everything on one server. So you rent one server, for example, on Hetzner, or you can really get any VPS that you want. And you run Coolify on it, and you also deploy your projects on it. Now, I only recommend this for non-critical projects, smaller side projects, where you want to keep it as simple and as cheap as possible, and that don't really have any huge production workloads that are critical. And then there's also an advanced way, which I'm going to show you in the next video, which will require you to set up a load balancer. And it will basically have multiple servers that you can host your applications on. And that will just make everything a lot more redundant and make sure that you're always online. Also, just a quick note for later. I'm going to deploy my Coolify instance on coolify.allaboutpayload.com. And for my actual apps that I want to deploy, I will host them on appname.coolify.allaboutpayload.com. So for example, if I deploy myfastblog, it will be myfastblog.coolify.allaboutpayload.com. Now, this is a very long URL. This is just for testing purposes. Obviously, you can keep it a lot smaller, but you can also have it nested in various subdomains. To get started, we first need to set up our VPS. Now, as I said, I'm going to do this on Hetzner. You're free to choose whatever you want, AWS, Linode, whatever. I'm just going to create a new project. I already have one test project running, so I'm going to name it All About Payload Coolify. I'm going to add a new project and click on create server. Now for me, I'm going to choose Nuremberg as the server location. This is just the closest region. I'm going to choose Ubuntu. And for now, I'm just going to take a shared virtual CPU. You can try whatever you want. I also tried the more or less cheapest one for €4 per month. It works, but obviously you shouldn't really have any high workloads on there. So what I'm going to choose for now is the CX32. That will give me a little bit more juice. And I'm going to take the public IPv4. I'm just going to skip through the SSH keys. You can obviously set them up, which is more secure. But for now, I'm just going to click on create and buy now. Now this will spin up the server, which shouldn't take too long. One thing that I forgot to mention, in comparison to, for example, Vercel, Coolify is really suited well for higher workloads, because on Vercel you're serverless and on Coolify you're not. You just have this one big server, which also makes it a great option if you're still on version 2, which can't easily be deployed on Vercel anyways. So in this case, Coolify is a great option. Now, as soon as our server has booted, you are going to receive an email that will look like this, and it will contain your IP address and the credentials for the root access. If you have set up an SSH key, it won't generate that. But since we didn't do that, you will have to check your email inbox. We're now going to SSH into our server. So I'm going to open up my terminal. I'm going to say SSH root at, and I'm going to paste my IP address. And now I'll have to paste in my password that I got from the email. It now prompts me to change my current password immediately. So I'll have to paste in my current password again and set a new password. The next step is to install Coolify. This is actually very simple. I'm going to go to coolify.io and I'm going to click on self-hosted. And this will give me this command here that I just have to copy and paste. And this will just install everything that Coolify needs, and it will start up the Coolify server. So let's wait for 1 to 2 minutes. When this is done, we can already access our Coolify instance under the IP address port 8000, which I'm going to just copy and paste in here. And we should now see our Coolify admin panel. Now, I'm just going to create the first user here. One important part here is our communication is not secure. This is HTTP protocol. We're going to fix that straight away, but I would recommend creating a first account, then switching on SSL, and then creating another secure account and getting rid of the old one. So I'm just going to set a password here. It now says, welcome to Coolify. You can go through the onboarding process. We're just going to click through it real quick. In here, I will choose I want to deploy on the local host. And it will ask me to create a new project. I'm just going to skip that for now. And this is the Coolify dashboard that we get as a welcome. The very first thing that I'm going to do is actually give our instance a domain name and a certificate. For that, I'm going to go into my DNS settings for the all about payload domain. And what I'm going to do is create a new record, create an A record. And since we want to host it on coolify.allaboutpayload.com, I'm going to specify Coolify. And for the IP address, I'm just going to copy the one from the URL and paste it in here. There is a second record that I'm also going to add. Okay, it told me that, yeah, obviously the data is not valid because it only needs to be the IP address. I'm going to click on save. And the second DNS entry that I'm going to add is our wildcard for our projects. So I'm going to say A, I'm going to say asterisk dot Coolify, and I'm going to point it to the exact same IP address. Click on save. And now the only thing left that we have to do in our Coolify project is go to settings, and here we can configure the instance domain. And I'm going to set it to https coolify.allaboutpayload.com. I'm going to click on save, and this should work pretty quickly. So I'm just going to see if it already works. I'm going to say coolify.allaboutpayload.com. So now this is giving me a certificate error, which should go away within a couple minutes. So if you were facing this SSL certificate authority invalid or something error, what helped in my case, apart from waiting for a bit, is just setting it to something that is not valid and then setting it back to your actual domain. That fixed it for me at least, or maybe it was just the waiting time of 5 minutes. So now that we're set, I'm just going to log in. And as you can see, we're now on our coolify.allaboutpayload.com domain, and we also have our traffic SSL encrypted. So now you can go ahead, create other users, do whatever you want. I'm just going to leave it out for now. The second thing we're going to set up is our wildcard domain for our projects. So I'm going to go to servers and to the only server that is currently available, which is the local host. So the server that the Coolify instance is hosted on. And now for the wildcard domain, I'm going to add https coolify.allaboutpayload.com. That will make sure, change localhost. Yes. So that will make sure that all the projects, so for example, my fast block would appear under my fastblock.coolify.allaboutpayload.com. So let's deploy our first project. I'm going to go to projects, click on add, just going to name it my fast block. I'm going to choose the same repository that we had in our last video. I'm going to click on the production environment, and here you can also add multiple environments. So you can add a production environment, a staging environment, whatever you might wish. For the production environment, I'm going to create a new resource. And here is where we can choose if we want to deploy it from a public repository, a private repository. We can also use Docker. We can deploy specific databases, like I told you in the beginning. And we can also use those sort of standard templates, for example, for a code server or Directus or AppWrite, just templates that you can basically deploy within one click. I'm going to choose private repository with GitHub app. I'm going to select the local host, so our server, and the only destination, network destination that is available. And to connect my GitHub, I will have to click on Add GitHub App. Now, one thing that you have to keep in mind here, if you want to deploy from a GitHub organization, you will have to specify it right here. If you're using, or if you come from Railway, for example, you might just be able to connect your GitHub and then choose all the organizations. This is not possible here, so I will have to specify the All About Payload organization. Click on Continue. And this will bring me to the next page where I have to click on Register Now. And this will grant me to log in to my GitHub account. When I've successfully authenticated in GitHub, you might already be logged in. I can create this GitHub app here by clicking on this button, and I will be redirected to Coolify. Now I'll have to click on Install Repositories on GitHub, and this is where I can choose within the All About Payload organization that I selected if I want to grant access to all repositories or only a specific set of repositories. I'm going to choose all and click Install. That will redirect me back, and now, as you can see, I have a bunch of credentials sitting here. And this would be it for the GitHub integration. Now I can go back to projects, my fast block, add new resource, private repository, localhost. And now I should be able to choose, if I select my GitHub app, I should be able to choose my projects that I have in the All About Payload organization. I'm going to deploy my fast block now. So I'm going to click on it, load repository, select the main branch. I'm going to choose Nix packs to build it. You can also use Docker if you wish, port 3000. And I'm just going to click on continue for now. There are some advanced options, but I'm not going to touch on them right now. So this will give me this general overview. And before I deploy it, I need to add my environment variables. So I'm just going to click on either add or developer view. This will just give me a window where I can paste in my credentials. And when I've added them, I'm going to click on save. And now I could click on deploy. One thing that I want to adjust before that, what Coolify actually does is a health check. If it deploys your application, it basically checks afterwards if it's running successfully. Now, if you do have a site that is available under the index, you can just leave it as it is. But for now, our block is currently empty. So the only thing that we have and that works is the /admin route. If you don't do this, the health check will fail and your deploy won't succeed. So I'm going to save it. I'm going to click on deploy. And now, as you can see, this is very similar to other platforms. It starts deploying and you can view all the logs. If you want the logs to be more detailed, more verbose, you can click on show debug logs. That will actually show you exactly what is going on. All right, the deploy is complete now. And as you can see, it attempted 2 health checks by calling the admin panel. And those were successful, at least the second one was successful. So now our application is deployed. To get our domain, I'm going to go back to configuration, and in here, I'm going to see my domain. Now you can change this one. This is just automatically generated. So if I copy this and I open it up in a new tab, we should get, this 404 page. That's what I was talking about. We don't have an index page yet, but our admin panel should work as expected. So I'm just going to log in real quick. Yeah, and here's our Payload admin panel. You can add users, you can do whatever you want. This runs on a normal server. It's just managed by Coolify. That's it for today's video. If you do have any questions about Coolify, also, as you can see, there are a lot more options here and a lot more things that you can do. I'm planning to do at least one or maybe more advanced videos. If you want to see more content around Coolify, please let us know in the comments. If you have any specific questions or if you're struggling with anything specific, please let us know as well. And apart from that, take care and see you in the next video.